the legendary fin disappear into a magical doorway within the rock face. Here at the Giant's Causeway, a drone filmed a stone door moving in. Ireland. The footage shows a massive slab of rock sliding open on its own, staying open for exactly 11 seconds, then sealing itself shut. Investigators ran sonar scans on that section of rock. Well, that footage is absolutely incredible, isn't it? Well, earlier. Today, tourists, historians, geologists, architects and giant experts all congregated here and have been examining the rock face to see if there is indeed any sign of Finn McCool, that legendary and magical giant. What they found inside that chamber is something no one can explain, the door that breathes. So, here's the thing. The Giant's Causeway has drawn visitors for centuries. The ancient Irish believed a giant named Finn McCool built it. Scientists say volcanic activity created it 60 million years ago, but neither legend nor science prepared anyone for what happened that afternoon. The tourist who launched the drone was just trying to get a better angle. Nothing special, just another visitor hoping to capture something worth posting. The camera hovered near a tall section of interlocking pillars, capturing the waves, the tourists below, the hexagonal columns stretching toward the sea. Everything looked normal, peaceful, even. Then one slab of stone began to move, not crumble, not collapse, move. Outward, controlled, deliberate, like a door swinging open on ancient hinges. And get this, in that spot where he disappeared into the rock fist of any doorway or hinges or anything like that. Several witnesses on the ground saw the exact same thing. Park Ranger Thomas Brennan was the first to call it in. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his radio. His voice cracked. Twice during the transmission, he told dispatch the rock shifted like a door on, hinges smooth and intentional. He said it looked like the mountain was exhaling. Before anyone could react, the slab slid back into place. The rock sealed itself and the tourists stood frozen, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Think about that for a second. A 60-million-year-old volcanic formation just opened and closed like someone was checking who knocked. When investigators examined the footage frame by frame, they found something that made their blood run cold. There was no gap, no crack, no visible seam. The basalt appeared completely solid, as if the stone had never moved at all, but the drone footage showed otherwise. The timestamps were intact. The video hadn't been edited. Something opened in that cliff face and something sealed. It shut again. Here's the catch. Witnesses reported hearing deep rhythmic breathing coming from inside the rock face just moments before the stone moved. Sean Alley, a geology professor from Dublin who was visiting that day, went pale when he described it. To investigators, he said it sounded like something massive taking slow, deliberate breaths, like pressing your ear against someone's chest while they sleep. But there was the unmistakable sound of snoring coming from within the mountain. That's right, snoring from within the mountain. So it would seem possibly plausible that the legendary and mythical giant Finn McCool is indeed sleeping within the mountain here, only this was coming from inside 60-million-year-old volcanic rock. Then came the sonar sweep, and that's when everything changed. The chamber behind that basalt door was not empty. The scan revealed several tall upright forms standing inside the hollow space. Their outlines were narrow, steady. They looked like human bodies, but they measured over 8 feet tall, far taller than any known. Population ancient or modern. The figures stood in an even line, spaced at exact intervals, as if someone had arranged them with purpose. Dr. Margaret Sullivan, a geologist from Queen's University Belfast, was the first to analyze the scans. She stared at those images until her coffee went cold. Her assistant said she didn't move for nearly an hour. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Basalt does not naturally form around objects in perfect upright positions, unless those objects were already standing in place before the rock hardened. She checked the equipment. 3 times ran the scans. Again. The results were identical every time. Let that sink in. These figures, whatever they are, were standing upright when volcanic material surrounded them. They didn't fall. They didn't try to escape. They stood there and let the molten rock seal them in place, willingly, deliberately. Who does that? What does that? And why were they arranged so perfectly, like soldiers awaiting inspection? But here's the deal. The sensors placed near the chamber are still picking up faint vibrations behind the rock wall. The movement passes through the stone in a slow, repeating pattern. Rhythmic, consistent, almost biological. Some officials claim it's just pressure, shifts from underground water systems. Others aren't so sure. The rhythm is too consistent, too measured, too much like breathing. One technician who monitored the readings overnight refused to return. The next day, He said it felt like something was listening back. Authorities denied everything. They refused to release the sonar images. They insisted the basal door was a natural illusion and claimed no internal chamber existed. And then quietly they restricted access to the exact section of the formation where the opening appeared. But the sensors are still detecting movement. Something inside. That rock is shifting. And according to locals who live near the causeway, the door opens more often than anyone wants to admit. If this is already making your skin crawl, hit subscribe right now because we're just getting started. The Giant's Causeway isn't the only place where stone doors move on their own. The tombs that sealed themselves from the inside. The cliffs of Mia rise in sharp walls of ancient stone, and every surface contains openings that look like windows carved into the mountain side. So we're at the ancient city of Myra. And behind me you can see the rock-cut tomb. From a distance it resembles an abandoned village suspended in the rock. But here's the thing. These aren't houses, they're tombs. Hundreds of them carved into sheer cliff faces. That would be nearly impossible to access today. The ancient Lycians carved these chambers into the rock more than 2,000 years ago. They believed the soul needed a proper residence after death, so they created entire cliffside neighborhoods for the dead, complete with balconies, pillars, and painted chambers. Basically an apartment complex for corpses. But that's not even the disturbing part. The real horror waited inside the lion tomb. 11 life-size stone figures stand inside. That chamber carefully positioned with their carved eyes facing the sarcophagus. Their postures are identical. Their spacing is precise to the centimeter. Archaeologists claim they represent the family of the deceased, but darker evidence suggests these statues may represent attendants who were sacrificed to accompany the tomb owner into the afterlife. And get this: chemical analysis of the stone shows traces of organic material. What we uncovered next wasn't supposed to exist. It shouldn't exist, and yet it does. 3 months after the Giant's Causeway event, a geological monitoring team in northern China detected rhythmic pulses coming from beneath a remote mountain range. They assumed it was seismic interference, maybe a minor fault line adjusting. But the pulses were too steady, too intentional. So a small research group was sent to investigate. Only 2 returned. Their statements were sealed, but fragments leaked from someone involved in the medical evaluations. One researcher couldn't stop shaking. The other kept repeating the same sentence over and over, as if trying to convince himself it wasn't real. It knew our names. Not it spoke, not it sounded alive. It knew their names before they introduced themselves. The rest of the team is still listed as missing in the field, even though satellite images show their equipment abandoned in a perfect circle placed as if by deliberate hands. No tracks leading in or out. The ground around the site looks flattened, as if pressed down by something massive that left no visible imprint, only a geometric indent in the soil. Something underground reached up, not with hands, not with claws, with pressure, as though the mountain itself inhaled. But that was only the beginning. 2 weeks later, deep mining sensors in South America recorded tremors matching the same pulse signature. The data was reviewed 3 times. Identical frequency, identical pattern across 2 continents separated by oceans and thousands of miles of tectonic plates. Experts said that was impossible, but the Earth didn't care. When the pulses appeared a 3rd time in Antarctica, they shifted everything, because the ice beneath the signal wasn't solid. It was hollow. A cavity almost a mile wide exists beneath the ice sheet with a temperature far higher than anything environmentally reasonable. The heat is coming from its center, spreading outward, melting ancient ice that hasn't seen sunlight in tens of thousands of years. Satellite imagery revealed something else. A structure inside the chamber. Not natural, not formed by lava tubes or glacial erosion. Symmetrical, geometric, constructed. Engineers tried to dismiss it as imaging error, until the shape itself began emitting the same rhythmic pulses recorded in the other locations. A perfect match. Something beneath Antarctica is communicating. And it's calling to the others. Here's where things get worse. Old records, really old, contain descriptions matching this exact phenomenon. Tablets, carvings, codices, cultures separated by continents and millennia, describing the deep ones who sleep beneath the bones of the world, always dormant, always still, until the waking signals. Most historians assume these are metaphors or myths. They aren't. The patterns are too alike, the descriptions too specific. And then there's the part no one wants to acknowledge. The warnings. Every surviving record speaks of a time when the Earth would tremble not from quakes or storms, but from the turning beneath. It says, "When the deep ones stir deep." The stone itself remembers its ancient purpose, not to protect us, not to house us, but to judge us. And the judgment begins with the opening of the old chambers. That brings us to the fourth site, a desert region where temperatures normally exceed 45 degrees Celsius. No vegetation, nothing but endless dunes, but something beneath the sand has started to rise. A research drone captured the first footage, the ground bulging upward in slow-timed movements, almost like breathing. The sand flowed down the sides as the mound expanded, contracted, then expanded again. Not random seismic activity, a controlled, measured rhythm. Breathing. Then the drone's sensors cut out. All telemetry went dark. A heat spike fried its circuits mid-air, but before the camera died, it recorded 3 frames, only 3. Frame 1, the mound expanding violently. Frame 2, a crack splitting across the sand in a perfect radius. Frame 3, eyes, reflective, vertical pupils, staring directly at the drone. Then everything went black. The drone crashed. The footage was lost. But backups always exist. And those 3 frames didn't look like any known animal. They didn't even look mammalian or reptilian. They looked ancient, older than human civilization, older than the continents in their current shape. Something beneath that desert is trying to emerge. But it's what happened next that changed everything. At dawn, the mound collapsed. The sand fell flat. The rhythm stopped. But not because the thing inside went back down. No, because it left. Thermal scanners recorded a massive heat signature moving rapidly beneath the dunes, traveling in a straight line toward the nearest mountain range, at a speed no burrowing animal should be able to reach. Imagine something the size of a building traveling underground faster than a car, and it's heading somewhere specific. Meanwhile, the activity in Turkey intensified. 3 new tomb entrances, once sealed since the Bronze Age, were found open. Not broken, not collapsed. Open. Stone doors weighing thousands of pounds had shifted outward, leaving smooth tracks in the dust, as though they'd been gently pushed from within. The interior walls of these tombs contained fresh markings, not ancient carvings, fresh scratches. Some dug inches deep into the rock. Something inside those tombs wasn't trying to escape. It was trying to follow something, and whatever it is, it's moving. Then there's the sound. The same low-frequency rumble recorded in Ireland has now been detected in 5 separate countries. Not loud enough for the human ear, but measurable, consistent, increasing. Scientists ran a full-spectrum analysis. The frequencies aren't random. They're too ordered, too patterned. They resemble communication signals. Some think it's a warning. Others think it's a countdown. But the oldest myths suggest something far more terrifying. A summons. The alignment. Ancient structures some thousands of miles apart have begun detecting synchronized vibrations. Uluru, the Nazca Plateau, the Dolomites. Himalayan temples that have stood silent for centuries now resonate at the exact same frequency. These places were not chosen at random. They form a global pattern, one impossible to see until modern mapping technology. A network connected beneath the earth. The caves, tombs, sealed chambers. These are not isolated phenomena. They are access points. Gates. The surface level edges of a system far larger and older than anything humanity has built. And all of them are activating. The last transmission from the Mammoth Cave research team wasn't a message. It was a reply, but not from any humans still inside. Sensors placed miles underground began picking up harmonics outside the human vocal range. Frequencies so low, they rattled steel beams so high they made glass quiver. But underneath all that was rhythm, a pulse, a deliberate pattern, a countdown. Not numbers, intervals, like something measuring distance, or time, or how thin the barrier had become after centuries of pressure. The analysts replayed the waves again and again, hoping it was equipment failure. It wasn't. The patterns correlate with seismic zones we never understood. Ancient fault lines, long dormant, are shivering awake, moving in sync with the whispers, as if shifting to make space. As if clearing a path. As if remembering orders carved into the planet before any species opened its eyes. Governments are panicking quietly. Meetings behind locked doors. Reports sealed before anyone can read them twice. The public has no idea, but satellites do. And they've been screaming warnings for days. 2 days ago, thermal imagery captured massive temperature spikes under 3 regions once thought geologically dead. They're not dead. They're breathing, expanding and contracting like lungs beneath the crust. Rhythmic, intentional, coordinated, and worst of all, synchronized. Archaeologists finally cross-referenced the whisper patterns with forbidden tablets locked away in museum basements. Every civilization called them something different, the watchers beneath. The architects of stillness, the stone choir, the keepers of the first shape, names whispered in fear. Then buried because no one wanted to believe the earth itself could host something older than time. All cultures agreed on one thing. They only speak when waking, and now their voices are overlapping, syncing, harmonizing. A global convergence. The call isn't just awakening them, it's aligning them. Under the Appalachian limestone, a chamber no one has mapped is widening stone, dissolving as if remembering how to bend. Under Cappadocia, tunnels once sealed by volcanic ash are clearing themselves as though pushed from the inside by hands large enough to reshape caverns. Under the Giant's Causeway, basalt columns are vibrating like tuning forks, preparing for a single perfect note. None of this is natural. It's coordinated, strategic, rehearsed. The last line of the ancient warning, translated only last night, changes everything. When the deep ones rise, the world will remember its first shape. Not its first people, not its first creatures, its first shape. Because the continents weren't formed by tectonics alone. They were carved, moved, arranged by something vast enough to cradle mountains like pebbles. Something that used the planet not as a home, but as an instrument. And those hands are stirring again. The ground is humming now, not just in caves, not just underwater. Everywhere, animals hear it first. Flocks abandoning coastlines without hesitation. Herds stampeding inland as though outrunning something invisible. Birds circling in chaotic spirals before disappearing entirely. They're not migrating, they're fleeing. And soon humans will hear it too. The countdown is nearly finished. The intervals are tightening. The signal growing sharper, louder, more commanding. The last voice, the one under the Antarctic ice, has grown louder. It's not answering anymore, it's leading. We thought we were studying echoes of the past, but these aren't echoes. They're signals, directives. A summons older than language, older than memory, and the earth is obeying. Because the stone remembers. The earth remembers. All the layers, all the fractures, all the scars we mistook for natural history, they were instructions. Locked doors, warning signs, and now they are opening. The deep ones are not just rising, they are returning. And they expect us to remember them too.